Welcome to the Surplus Boys channel. For once, I'm in front of the camera while shooting something at my house. It's weird, I know. My wife's behind the camera. Don't hit the tripod, please. There's no editing this video. I can't edit that out.
Sorry.
Alright. I don't know how well you guys can hear me. Hopefully you can hear me well. But today, I have two M37 wool jackets here in front of me. This one is a brand new one. This one is one I've had for probably 2 years. Today, as much as everybody wants to see the chin straps get sewn onto the helmet, we're doing something else. So this jacket has a Master Sergeant stripe sewn on and an infantry badge. This being the 2nd Infantry Division. This is a jacket I did before I had any unit at the time. And this is kind of like when I go to an event and I'm not with them, I walk around with this on. But today, we're going to actually do the jacket that I will be wearing with my M37 wool uniform. So, this is a brand new jacket from at the front. I'm sure people have probably already realized that these are not wool. These are at the front's new flannel jackets. I'm still trying them out. I like them and I don't like them at the same time. I mean, you can kind of see what happens after you wash them for a while. This one's been washed a couple times. This one hasn't. That is the nice thing. You don't have to dry clean these, which is nice. So, it's no substitute for an actual wool shirt, though, but that's beside the point. So today, we're going to be sewing on an original. This is an original World War II 28th Infantry keystone patch that you couldn't see. There you go. So, and that will be going up on your left sleeve. We'll run through everything. There's not really a specific distance. There's a guideline to adhere to, but there's not a specific distance. Maybe in today's military there was. I'm not sure. In World War II, there wasn't. So, there's no editing in this video. It's going to get a little shaky. I'm sorry. So now we're going to move the camera out, and I will get you zoomed in on her. She's going to be sewing this on because I can't sew. So, yeah. And we're back. I didn't know there was a pause feature on my phone, so you missed all the camera setup. I give you my wife.
Hi. So the nice thing is, this we have not washed. You can pre-wash it if you want to, but that's perfectly up to you. Personally, I like to crease the edge, just so then I can find the center of the sleeve directly. Just so then I know that I'm putting this centered into that directly. So what I'll do is I'll open it up so I can see that full, nice press crease. So recommendation is about 1 inch to 1.5 inches, 1.25 inches. On his previous jacket, I did about 1 inch. I will put the top of this right at that inch mark. And then if it's a little off, if it's a little 1/4 inch, not the end of the world. No one's going to be going around with a measuring tape measuring exactly how far off you are. So with that being said, then I want to center my patch into the center, just because I don't want it to be wonky. And with that, I'm going to double check. Might need to move it up a little. So I'm about 1.25 inches roughly. Personally, with newer patches, you can iron this right onto the jacket just to stabilize it. Since this is an original patch, there is no nice glue on the background. So with this, I'm just going to have to manually pin it myself. This is where personal preference comes in. So stab middle. Don't stab yourself.
I usually ask her how many times she stabs herself when she does this.
It's not a matter how much blood you get on the project, it's how much blood you keep off the project.
It's red.
So I just have it staked into the middle right now. And I'm just going to stake the edges just so then it's a little bit more secured. This is personal preference on how you would like it to stay. As Patrick leaves the room to go and cough, of course. And I'll just double check to make sure that I am still on center there. I'm gonna use a white pin so you can see it against the red. I realize that you probably can't see that pin, which does not make it helpful. So we'll switch that one out. We'll grab a white pin and we'll just pin it in place. I like to pin away from my sewing. So when I put this on the sewing machine, it's going to be coming, the thread will be coming this way. So my project is going to be pushed away from me. So then I can easily pull this pin out from underneath. So then it's not in my way. I'm going to have Patrick pause this just so then I can get this set up in screen for you, and then we'll come back. So on my sewing machine right now, I have a very fancy Singer sewing machine, something I got during Christmas time. But with this, I have it just on a regular zigzag stitch so then I can go back and forth. I'm going to be following the natural zigzag that is already on the patch to begin with, just so then it looks more natural. Technically, these would have been hand sewn on during the war, but since we put ours through washes and stuff like that, we want something that's going to hold up a little bit longer. So I have it set to a zigzag stitch. My stitch width is 4.0, just so then it can go back and forth over it. And then I have my stitch length tied very tight together, so then I can at least get them a little bit closer together, just so then it looks a little bit nicer put together. I'm going to start off with a slower speed, just because this is an oddball patch. And then I'm going to stop in the corner. I'm going to make sure my needle is still pointed into the patch. When I turn the corner, it just keeps it more stabilized and a little bit nicer. Normally when you're sewing, you're going to go back and forth when you start your stitch and then when you end your stitch. But for this right now, I am not going to do that, just because I am going to come back over top of my stitch that I started with directly. Your bottom thread doesn't matter. It's only your top thread that's really going to matter. So I have a red thread that matches our patch as close as we possibly can. So I'm off at a slower pace right now. And preference wise, there's a little arrow on my foot, and I'm just putting the natural pattern of this in between those feet right now. And I'm going to start off pretty slow. And it's just going back and forth. I can slowly speed this up, so then I can go a little bit faster. And if this is your first time doing this, you want to take it nice and slow. It's better to take it slow rather than going too fast. So I'm getting close to my edge. So I don't know if you can see this, but on my side of my sewing machine, I have a nice dial. And what it does is I can basically hand sew as I use my sewing machine. And I'm going to work my way up to this edge just by hand, just because it's the easiest. And then I'm going to lock it in place. I'm going to open up my foot, and this allows me to spin this around. This is the fun part, where you got to tuck everything nicely neat. With this, I have the flat main part out right now, just so that I can get a little bit further down on the sleeve. We're going to put our foot back down, and I'm going to come out of that stitch, and then I'm going to start sewing. Back in. Now we're going to flip it the other way. This is a weird patch, so this has a little bit nooks and crannies and everything like that, so it's going to feel a lot different. I can still move this back and forth, so then I can get it a little bit lined up. Back down, and we're gonna start again. I can also control the speed by my foot pedal too. So I'm getting closer to the edge where I don't want it to go. Going to do one more hand stitch, and then back around. It's a fun game. It never ends. And we're gonna come back out. And we're just gonna keep going. So this is where I want to be able to remove my pin, just because as I get closer to this, it's going to slowly push my pin out of the way, but I actually don't need it anymore just because it is held on by the top right now. Don't just randomly put your pins on the table. That's not a good thing. I don't have a magnetic tray right now,
Ask her how
and
she
that is the
knows.
best place to put them. Just because they'll end up on the floor, and then when you walk out of your sewing room, you get stabbed by them.
Ask her how she knows.
I've done it a little too many times.
In our current place, we don't have a dedicated sewing room. This is the sewing room, train room, gun room,
Film
military room. So it's kind of, this desk does everything, as you've seen it in the background of some shorts.
So now the fun part. I might need to unbutton this a little bit more. Maybe all the way. Now I have to throw this whole shirt through the sewing machine.
Now, this isn't to say that there's patches that are easier than this to sew on. This just happens to be a keystone. Round patches, I'm sure, have their own intricacies.
Yes. I don't know if you can see this right through here. So my stitch is so tight together that it looks like it's the banding on the patch itself.
I can zoom in on that. So I'm going to zoom in a little bit here. It's not going to be the greatest, but
it looks like this banding here is part of the original patch, and that's the reason why I do a zigzag stitch, is just so then you don't have to see it completely.
Let me zoom back out.
I'm gonna remove
God damn it.
the rest of my pins as Patrick's shirt falls off of our makeshift stand, and then we're gonna come back out again and continue. So then the sewing machine will automatically feed the fabric through, so I don't have to push on the fabric or anything like that. The only pushing that you want to do on the fabric is just to kind of keep it in place. So now we're going to push the rest of this through. We're going to make our way around the patch. Before I started sewing, I did make sure that I was still within that 1 inch mark.
Did you make sure it was straight?
Yep. It's straight.
Okay. Yeah, I'm just making sure.
That's why I started it.
I know nothing about sewing, that's why she's doing this.
This is the easiest thing that you could possibly do for sewing wise.
You want not easy things? She's made me a Civil War cavalry jacket, a couple of Victorian era vests, all from scratch.
I do have patterns. It's the best way to make anything is based off of a pattern. They have size measurements on the back of them. I don't know where else you can get them around you. Joanne sells them, Michael sells them, but
Joanne's
Amazon,
mostly
Google.
around the country, right?
It is, but Joanne stopped shipping internationally, so you can only get Joanne's in the United States.
We do have quite a few actually international viewers.
But Amazon would be another best bet for.
Also, any local sewing shop that happens to be by you, it's kind of a dying art. It's very much like the way of the printing press. It's kind of dying. But you do find people, you do find tailors. You know, they might have patterns. I'm not saying they will, but some might.
So as we start to come around to the end of this, this is where I'm going to trim my little tail, just because I don't want it to poke out while I'm making it all nice and neat. The tiny little thread doesn't want to come out. And then this one is a little bit harder to see, but my thread underneath is black, and I'm just going to trim that little tail too. All of this can be trimmed at the end, but I like to trim the one on the top especially, so that I can easily tuck everything into place when So this one, we're a little too far over, which is okay. I'm just gonna pick up and move it, and then I'm just gonna hand sew 2, 1, back out, and I'm just gonna So we're coming around that corner one more time. Down, up, and around. So now we're back at that beginning again. So I'm just going to go back over it. And then on machines, you do have a reverser, and it's just to lock your thread into place. So I'm just going to go a little bit further. I'm going to press my button. It starts to move the sewing machine back in the opposite direction, and then I just go back over it. Once when you've met that point, you can release that foot. If you are trying to conserve thread, you can just cut your top on off right then and there. If you're not too concerned about your bottom thread, then you can pull it a little bit further. I like to pull mine out almost all the way. So my 2 threads, we cut them off. I am not left-handed. I cannot find my right-handed scissors. I do have a friend that is left-handed, so I like to make sure that I have that for her during our sewing projects. So now I have my nice long tail that's needs to be trimmed. So we're just gonna trim that tail. We're gonna flip it over. So this is where you can see that keystone patch again. It's a nice reverse image. And then we're just going to trim off that back. If my lovely husband would pause it for me. So as you can see, it is completely done right now. So this is what I was talking about. That nice little zigzag pattern around the whole outside. It makes it look like it's part of the original patch. So patches is from one of our other units that we're part of, which is, this is another original patch, which this one's been beat up a couple of times. But if I grab you a different one, if you can see how this nice green border around the outside is there, I'm trying to mimic that so then it looks a lot less noticeable. So if you look at it, it looks like it was just done by a normal factory. And that is it for sewing on a patch. I'll hand it over to Patrick.
And the finished product, and I've acquired a helmet. Ever since the helmet video, I finally adjusted my 1917 Kelly helmet so it fits my head now. Now I can do early work. I'm going to take this off. I've had this on for the last 20 minutes. So, this is the finished product. I don't have any rank or anything on here, not even a private stripe yet, because, yeah, I don't know. Maybe I'll find that out this weekend, but just a little bit of background on this. Units landing in Normandy during D-Day, 99% of the time had patches sewn onto their jackets and stuff like that. Towards the end of the war, like most things, they stopped doing it, especially on field jackets. You basically never see patches on HBT jackets. I'm not saying it's not done, it is, but, you know, like Marines in the Pacific would paint on chevrons instead of actually sewing them on. But that's the finished product. There's your 28th Infantry patch. And, yeah. So please remember to like, rate, comment, subscribe, hit the bell icon, and leave your stuff down in the doobly-doo.